Hi all, a very good morning. So quickly navigating back to our application services where we left it off yesterday. So we are going to explore a few more things in the today's part. So we have learned about what is AWS Active Directory integration. We have learned about what is Elastic Transcoder, and we have learned about the resources and the tagging. In the part of our today's section, we are going to cover a few more things. So let's get first started with the consolidated billing. Before that, let me log in into my AWS account. Okay. So we have something called as AWS organizations. So what does AWS organizations basically help you to do? So AWS organizations is an account management service that enables you to consolidate multiple AWS accounts into one organization that you create and centrally manage. Now it really becomes difficult that you have just one AWS account for a big MNC where you have several departments and you want to bifurcate everything, right? So you want to have some services to be used by finance department, some services to be used by some other department. And let's say if I'm trying to launch EC2 instance in the Mumbai region as a part of finance department, someone else is launching something else. And if I have a company which has got several number of departments, and if everyone is trying to use the same region, it becomes very jazzy to see through what are all my EC2 instances, what are all my resources which I have spinned up, and how it goes through. So AWS organizations is the better way to work with. So we basically go ahead and create multiple AWS accounts, and we actually go ahead and consolidate into the one. So how do we make consolidation? So there's something called as AWS organizations, with the help of which we'll be able to do it. Now, the moment you go onto the home screen, you will be able to see a button called as create an organization. So you can just click on the start now here. So there we go. It does ask me to go ahead and create an organization, right? So if I go ahead and click on create organization, it asks you, would you like to enable all the features, or it's only the consolidated billing that you would like to get through? Means if I enable all the features, it is basically hierarchy of the specific nature. Like let's say I'll show you on this diagram. Yeah. So let's say in this case, this is the main root account which will be having subunits, right? So let's say this is one of my subunit and this is another subunit, and this subunit has got created one of the AWS account, and this subunit has got couple of AWS accounts. Now this as a subunit would like to have whatever resources are there in both the AWS accounts. So in that case, I would opt to go for enable all features, so that I'll have a policy. If you see here, I'll have a policy enabled which is going to help me to access the resources as well what are happening in this AWS account to check through. But if I am at a root account, which is just managing the billing of this complete AWS accounts, it doesn't bother what AWS resources are being spinned up, but we are just managing the billing of all the AWS accounts at one place. So there are two ways of getting created with the account. So we are going to create the first one, that is on the higher side, that is going to just manage the billing part, single payer, and the centralized tracking of the cost and the detailed cost management reports, and then you can get started with this. So there we go. So account has been added up here, which is a part of the main AWS account. And now I can go ahead and add few more AWS accounts if I have any. So I do not have other AWS account at this point. So all I have to do is click on add the AWS account, and then it asks you whether you would like to create a new AWS account at this point, or would you like to invite any of the existing AWS accounts. So the moment you're going to send an existing invite an existing AWS account, he is going to get an email where they have to confirm saying that yes, I would be like to be a part of this organization, and it will start appearing here in this specific page where it says what is the name of the account, with whose email ID it is being registered, and what is the account ID. So basically with the account ID itself, we are going to send the invitation. So everything starts appearing in this case, and it says when it was joined, right? The moment they confirm it, the status will come here as joined and so date. So this, once it is being done across, I'll be able to go down to my billing reports or something. So I'll have to open up that again. Yeah, so I can just go down to billing section of my AWS, and then automatically all the billings of the AWS accounts that are put across in this organization will start appearing into one, right? So it actually gives me certain advantages that we are going to learn in few seconds. So this is about how we set out the organization, right? So you can actually go ahead and click on create organization, and then it asks you two ways, whether you would like to enable the full access or just for the billing purpose. So if you say full access, anyway this account will be able to track through the billing, but also they will also have the access to the resources that are spinned up in this specific AWS account, because there is some policy document that we are going to put across, which is going to give me cross account access, that we call it as. And if you say with only billing, then this root account is something like what we have just created, which has only access to the billing section, and it will be able to fetch whatever bill is being generated in this AWS account. Now, what is the major advantage when we use this consolidated billing or the organizations? So it becomes easier that all the accounts come into one place. Now this is one example, like we have just created one AWS account which we converted into paying account, and then I'm going to, let's say, making join for all the three other AWS accounts of my company. Like I have one for test and development, one for production, and third for back office. And let's say the monthly bill for this is coming around at $10,356, because test and development is trying to use around 1,456, production is trying to use it 2,400, back office is trying to use it 6,500. So directly it appears in the paying account saying that the total bill is around 10,356. But if I'm going to individual account, I'll be able to see the bill of 14562,400 and 6500. So this becomes an easier method, that I need to make only payment from one. I do not need to have all the departments paying it from their own pocket. So paying account is independent and cannot access the resources of the other accounts. So as we just saw, it will have a access only to the resources that are getting spinned up and retrieve their billing. So it cannot access those resources, but it can just retrieve the billing information. And all the linked accounts are independent with each other. So back office account cannot access the production, neither the production can access any of these test or back office accounts as well. And currently there's a limit of 20 linked accounts for the consolidated billing. So if you want to consolidate at this point of time, you can consolidate only 20 AWS accounts, but however that is a soft limit again. So you can go ahead and ask for the AWS to increase that soft limit so that you will be able to consolidate more than 20 AWS accounts in one of them. The major advantage is one billing per AWS account, and it's very easy to track the charges as well as allocate the cost and the volume pricing discount. right? So we also get some discounts that we are going to look through in the very next slide. What other kind of discounts we get it? So, but the major advantage is it is very easy to track, as well as only one billing that is going to get generated overall. Now, in terms of the advantage that we just learned, that you are going to get a discount on the billing, it is something like this. Now, if I'm trying to use only a single AWS account, you see here, if I'm trying to just talk about the S3 pricing, so it says that the first 1 TB is being charged at $0.03 per GB, and the next 49 TB per month is being charged at 0.0295 per GB, and followed by some charges are being available on this table at this point. Now let's say our test account is trying to use 600 GB, production account is trying to use 900 GB, and the back office account actually uses the 500 GB. Now, if I talk about this billing without consolidated section, what will happen? Everything falls under the below 1 TB. So I'm going to be charged at 0.03 per GB in this case. So 600 into 0.03 is going to give me $18, 900 into 0.03 is going to give me 27, and 500 into 0.03 is going to give me $15. So the overall cost I'm going to pay is $60 in this case. And when I add up all the sum of GBs here, it becomes approximately 2 TB. Now it's same if I go with the consolidated billing. What happens in this case? It is 1 TB into 0.03, because the first 1 TB is charged at 0.03, and the next 49 TB, as we all know, it's being charged at 0.0295. So the next 1 TB is being charged at 0.0295, so $59.50. Now the total bill is 59.50. Of course, you may think that is very less figure, but in the real time with the production cases, we do have large amounts of data. This very small example where we are just talking about 600, 500 GB and 900 GB of data. Trust me, one EC2 instance itself is around 100 GB of EBS volumes when we talk about in the normal production account. So the place where I work itself, for testing purposes, we do keep on creating the AMIs, and each AMI will at least have 100 GBs of EBS volumes lying behind, and those AMIs are hardly being deleted off, but they are like some thousands of AMIs which do exist in our account. So if I just consider of 100 GB being for each, you can just imagine the amount of cost I'm going to save with this consolidated billing. So it's just talk about the one AWS account I'm talking about. They have a total of 4 to 5 AWS accounts in which they have all these different AMIs, and there's a lot that we do in the storage as a part of S3 and other things. The major advantage would be something here, the reserved EC2 instances. Now companies saves a lot here when we talk about the reserved EC2 instances. Now what happens is, let's say this is the paying account, this is the test, production, and the back office account. Now this is a production account, so they have purchased 5 reserved instances in this case, right? So what happens in the reserved instance, we all know, let's say if the normal instance is charged at $1 per hour in the on demand, if I have purchased it as a part of reserved instances, then the costing will be almost 50% or the 60%. So let's assume it's a 50% saving. So it becomes $0.50 per hour now. So in the production account, they have purchased around 5 reserved instances. Now, if you see, it says that test account is currently using 6 on-demand instances, and the production account is using 3 on-demand instances. But overall, we have actually purchased 5 reserved instances. So now, since it has been purchased in the production account, we can still share the cost saving of this 5 onto test or the back office account as well. So now I will be billed only for the 5 instances, not so yeah, I'll be billed only for the 6 plus 3, it is 9. 9 minus 5 becomes 4. So I'll be billed only for the 4 reserved instance, 4 on-demand instances, and the 5 reserved instances I'll be billed at the very cheaper cost what I purchased it for, right? So in this case of reserved instances, we do actually get a lot of saving, because companies have purchased a subscription for a huge amount on the case of reserved instances, because the same, as I said, in our company's portfolio, they have 4 AWS accounts like this, and in any one of these AWS accounts, if they have purchased the reserved instances, the billing would drastically reduce for them, right? So in this case, if you see, the total is number of instances that is currently running is 6 plus 3 9. But however, since we have purchased 5 reserved instances, the cost for those 5 will be like half of it, normal than a normal cost, and I am going to pay the bill only for the 4 of them. So in reserved instances, usually what happens is we pay the cost initially itself. So upfront payment, if we do, we can do it for 1 full year. So reserved instances are specifically where you know that I would like to continue with the capacity for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years long, right? So reserved instances are the place where you are already telling that I would like to have a capacity of M1 large, which is like 4 virtual cores of CPU and 16 gigs of RAM. So you'll say that I would like to have this case of system all 24/7, 365 days onto my AWS account itself. So you're trying to reserve a specific capacity. If you see here, it is available in the EC2, in the reserved. One sec. Okay, so the moment you go down to the EC2 section here on the left hand side, you will be able to see something called as reserved instances, and the reserved instances are the place where you can actually say that I would like to purchase the subscription for the T2 micro for 1 year or for 3 years overall in a one shot, right? So if I say I would like to go with a Linux machine, tenancy default of default, I'll say okay, I would like to purchase T2 2x large. Term, I'll say that I would like to purchase it for 1 year. Let's see what all options you get, right? So it says if I'm going to use it for 12 months, so there are 3 different types of options. So if you want to make a upfront payment, or if you do not want to make it, if you want to go with partial, or if you want to go for all. So I'm going to use a standard offering class with all upfront payment, let's say. So I have to make an upfront payment of $2022 at this point, and then I do not have to pay anything for 1 year for this EC2 instances at all, right? Which means my EC2 instance will be costing at $0.231 per hour, and the normal rate is around 0.284 or something more than that, I guess. Yeah, it would be more than this. So it is basically showing the rate that will be per hour, and then effective rate will be around 0.23 or 0.20, right? So you are basically saving 40 to 50% of the costing in reserved instances. So the normal instances that we use for every 1 hour. So only important things to remember here is linked accounts. So you can have up to 20 linked accounts overall. However, we can increase it to a higher limit by just raising a support case with the AWS. And then we can also have the billing alerts, as we all know. So billing alerts will actually help you to track your budgets better. Like if you can set across saying that whenever the billing is going to hit more than $100, it should send you an email saying that yes, there has been a bill of more than $100 on your AWS account for this specific month, right? So we can also go across and set the billing alerts. And remember, the way we are going to get the advantages with the help of consolidated billing. So we can view the bill at one place itself for all the AWS accounts. We can make the payment from one AWS account itself, and I'm going to get some discounts as well when I am having multiple AWS accounts tagged into the one. So that was about the consolidated billing. Any questions or queries before we move to the next part? Yeah, in exam, basically they would ask something about, like they do ask a specific question that comes on the consolidated billing, that is something related to how do we save it or something as such. So where we can actually tell about these AWS organizations, with the help of which we can actually consolidate all the AWS accounts and then put it into one of them, and then that helps me to track the costs and make the billing, right? So it would give you a hint saying that I have multiple AWS accounts, this is the billing that is going to come across, how do I manage it better? So in options it will not be consolidated billing, but it will be like AWS organizations, something as such, which you have to select through. Any more queries, Rahul, Divya, from your side? Sure, I'll share with you guys some set of sample questions that will help you out to check through what are the different types of questions that come through the exam. So I'll share the notepad where I have got a certain number of questions which I will be able to share with you guys. So the next part of the topic here is basically the kinesis. So now what happens in the kinesis? So before we can go ahead and start the kinesis, we need to know what is called as streaming data. Now, in the era or generation of today, we all know what is streaming data. We all have been watching the different kinds of things in part of the streaming data. So it could be a live cricket match, or it could be a live cab booking that we do in our day-to-day life, right? So it is all basically a streaming data. Now, what happens with streaming data? It is basically a data that is generated continuously by thousands of data sources, which typically send the data records in small sizes, specifically in the order of kilobytes. We are trying to send the data, and then we are trying to combine and showcase it to the end client. Now, if you think about the some of the good examples here, the stock prices, we do see that the stock prices keep changing every fraction of second. Let's say you have placed a bid for some stock at the 0.05, and currently the price is like moving around between 0.04, 0.0485, 0.5, 0.15, 0.52, something as such, right? So we see that the stock prices keep changing, like within the fraction of seconds we can see the changes, right? So that is basically a streaming data. So how fast the stock price is changing, everything is directly visible on the screen of a computer. Similar is the case with the time when we book the cab. Let's say on the Uber or Ola, if you're trying to book a cab, the moment the cab is booked, now you can actually track in the real time where the cab is coming from, how much time is expected for the cab to reach near to my place, right? So it clearly shows the left and the right that cab is trying to take on the road, if he's taking a U-turn or if it's trying to do some activity, we are able to see it live. So how is that all happening? That is because of the streaming data, which is being nothing but the data records that are simultaneously generated and is delivered in the order of small sizes of kilobytes. So these are other examples, like purchasing from the online stores like Amazon.com. If you want to go and track across all the orders at any point, again, that's a streaming data because people are continuously ordering from the Amazon. The stock prices, gaming data, social network data like Facebook, you see the feed. Sometimes when you are live on the Saturday or Sundays, when a lot of people or in your friend circle may be available on the Facebook, and if they are updating something, you will be able to see that the feed keeps changing with in the real time, right? Someone has updated a new comment or someone has put in the new feed, automatically it starts popping up in your Facebook account. And the geospatial data, that's like the Uber and the Ola, and then the IoT sensor data is also part of streaming. Even the live cricket matches that we see is all about the streaming data itself. So what can we do with it? So we can actually analyze the streaming data with the help of a AWS service called as Kinesis. So Kinesis is a platform on the AWS to send your streaming data to, and Kinesis makes it easy to load and analyze the streaming data and also provide the ability for you to build your own custom applications for your needs. So with the help of Kinesis, we'll be able to analyze the data and then get the analytical results which are required in order to analyze the situation. Let's see what happens in this. So there are three different types of Kinesis services that we are going to learn about: Kinesis Streams, Kinesis Firehose, and Kinesis Analytics. So what happens in the Kinesis Streams? Now, as I just said, like we can generate the streaming data from anywhere. It can be from the EC2, it can be from the devices, it can be from the computers or some other sources as well. So we are trying to generate the streaming data, who are called as producers here, and then we are trying to send it to the Kinesis Streams. So this is the first portion where we are trying to send the data at the Kinesis Streams. Now the moment I'm going to send the data to the Kinesis Streams, it is stored in the shards. We are going to learn about the shards in the very next slide. So for now, just understand that this is a place where the data is being getting stored inside the Kinesis Streams, and it is called as shard. So we are trying to store the data in the shards, and then from the shards we are trying to go ahead and process the data using the EC2 instances. There are consumers who are like EC2 instances. In this case, they are going to pick up the data from the shard, analyze it in the proper way, and then send it across to either DynamoDB or S3 or EMR or the Redshift. Now, if I want to store in the tabular format, I can put it across in the DynamoDB. If I want to store it in the file format, I'll put it in the S3. If I want to analyze it furthermore, I'll use the EMR, that is a part of big data. And if I want to directly generate the analytical results, I'll put it across into the Redshift. So I'll be able to put the data that has been processed by the consumers into any one of them. And now what happens in the shard, the data can actually stay for minimum of 24 hours and maximum of 7 days. That's it. So within 7 days, the data has to be processed, or else it gets deleted automatically from the Kinesis Streams. And the minimum that is going to stay is 24 hours. So you can actually change this parameter as per your need. So whether you want 24 hours or maybe up to maximum of 7 days for the retention period of the data. So we just heard about the term called as shard. So what does a shard do? Shard basically is a kind of database, or we can tell the data storage machine, which has got a capacity of heavy reads and heavy writes. Now it can actually handle 5 transactions per second for the reads, and each transaction read rate can be at the rate of 2 MB per second. Right, so you can just imagine if it is carrying even the 5 transactions per second, it is at a capacity of 2 MB that it can read, and up to 1000 records per second for the writes, up to maximum total write rate of 1 MB per second. So it can write up to 1000 records in one single second. So if you have thousands of orders getting placed, you can use the shard to analyze the same, right? So I can use the shards where I can immediately make a note of 1000 transactions, and then I give it to my consumers to go ahead and analyze it. And the total write rate is at the rate of 1 MB per second. So we can just imagine the speed at which it's going to write the data and read the data. So reading is at 2 MB per second and writing is at 1 MB per second. And in terms of the read, it can handle 5 transactions, and in terms of write, it can handle up to thousands of transactions. So that is basically the shards which have a higher capacity of the reads and writes, not just in terms of the numbers, but also in the amount of data that can be read in like 2 MB per second or 1 MB per second for the writes. The data capacity of a stream is a function of the number of shards that you specify for the stream. The total capacity of the stream is sum of the capacity of its shard. So what happens in this case is, when I say the data capacity of a stream, right? So what is the capacity that this kinesis streams will be able to handle? Depends upon the number of shards that I have in this box, right? And the total number of and the total capacity is nothing but sum of the shards. So if I have 4, then the total capacity I'll call it as 4 shards. That is basically about the kinesis streams. So I have the producers producing the data that is being stored into the shards, and then I'm using the consumers to go ahead, pick the data from the shards, process it, and put it further into the DynamoDB, S3, EMR, or the Redshift. Now the next is basically Kinesis fire hose. So let's see what happens in the Kinesis fire hose. Again, I have got the producers here who are trying to produce the data from the EC2 instances, mobile devices, laptops, or some other sources as well. Now in the Kinesis fire hose, whether I want to transform the data or not is completely optional. So whatever data if you remember in the last example that we just looked at Kinesis streams, we are actually trying to process the data to appropriate format so that we can store it into the S3 or maybe the DynamoDB or maybe somewhere else. But in this Kinesis fire hose, sometimes it does happen that I don't have to format the data at all. Then why should I use Kinesis streams when I have to store the data into the shards, and then it will go ahead and store into the specific location. So instead of that, I can directly put into the Kinesis fire hose where the transformation of data is completely optional, and if required, I'll be using the lambda function in between to transform the data into the appropriate format, and then straight away store the data into the S3. Or from S3, I can send the data to the Redshift in a particular format, and then maybe from here I can send it to the Elasticsearch cluster. So these are the some certain examples that I can do with the Kinesis fire hose. So with the fire hose, we can actually send the data directly to this S3 or Redshift or maybe to Elasticsearch clusters directly. So I don't have to process the data, and if it is required to process, I can still integrate it with the AWS Lambda behind the scene. And finally, we have the Kinesis Analytics. So what happens in the Kinesis Analytics? Now, whatever data we are trying to get from the producers, we can actually send it either to Kinesis streams or Kinesis fire hose. These are the symbols of the Kinesis streams and the fire hose. Now, if you want to analyze what amount of data is currently existing in the streams, what amount of data is currently existing in the fire hose, we have this Kinesis Analytics. So Kinesis Analytics, with the help of this, I'll be able to analyze what's happening at this point in the streams, what's happening at this point in the fire hose, what amount of data is existing, what amount of data is getting processed, and how much time would it take. So we will be able to analyze those situations with the help of this Kinesis Analytics. So basically, as far as the exam is concerned, yes, you are going to get 1 or 2 questions on the Kinesis for sure. So all you have to remember is the difference between the streams and the fire hose. So if you see somewhere in the question that it talks about the shards and processing the data used with the help of consumers and then sending it to the backend some other services, then you can be sure that we are talking about the Kinesis streams. And if there is given something in the question where it says that optionally we can transform the data into some other form if required, then you can think about the Kinesis fire hose in this case. So those are the 2 important scenarios that we should know as per the exam point of view: what is Kinesis stream and what is Kinesis fire hose. And overall, remember, Kinesis is basically a service that talks about the streaming data. So the moment you're going to see the question with the streaming data, just think about Kinesis and then analyze the situation whether I would be requiring the Kinesis streams or whether I would require a Kinesis fire hose in this case. So any questions here from any one of you on the Kinesis?
Pawan, how to configure it?
How about you, Rahul?
Yeah, how to configure it?
Sorry.
How to configure Kinesis in AWS?
Kinesis, it's part of service. Well, I have not done it yet because we don't get much things to work on the Kinesis at this point. However, we are going to get some other work, the part of next month as a part of analyzing the log data. That is something that we are going to come with. Yeah, so here if you see, there are some examples that we see in the Amazon Kinesis. So Firehose and the streams, he has given both the examples that we just went through. So he in the Firehose, we have the optional moment of using through the data, transforming it, and then we put it across. Okay, let's see. Let's get started. So there are four different things, that is like creating a data stream, and then creating a delivery stream, and creating an analytics application. Analytics, as we know, it is going to be on top of both the Kinesis Firehose and the Kinesis streams. Right? So if you want to use analytics, then it will be on top of these data streams and the delivery streams. So let's check out the data stream here. So it's going to ask me the name, then it's going to ask you the number of shards that you require so that the data can be stored across. So we just learned about this, right? The number of transactions that it can actually basically handle. So that's it. I guess that's simple to create the Kinesis stream. All we have to need is we need to get the endpoint of this from where we are going to send the data to. So the moment I say test with the name test Kinesis stream, and then I say the number of shards, it is going to go ahead and create this Kinesis stream directly. And I don't think it is actually available as a part of free tier to explore this Kinesis streams at this point yet. And again, it depends what all region we are into. Like it says, Kinesis Firehose is not supported in the data analytics, none of the video streams. So you may have to either go to Ireland or the US East one in order to explore more about these services. So any more questions or queries before we wrap up for the day? How about you, Rahul, and any more questions or queries for the day? Thanks all. Have a great day, and we'll be back again tomorrow at the early morning at 7. I'll just have a word with the Vision Pod team so that we can start early a little bit. So exactly at 7 so that we cover up a little more topics in here. Thanks all.